The Mavs have a new guard. Evan Mobley and Sam Hauser have a lot of money. Team USA is doing good enough, and the Miami Heat are the summer champs. There's so much to get to in the basketball world, and you'll hear all of it on today's Locked On NBA. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your week, and welcome into Locked On NBA, where you can get the latest and greatest from around the association. And what a time to do it, because yesterday, the last NBA game until the preseason was played, Summer League is done. Team USA is winning, but not in a way that everybody's psyched about, and players are still getting contracts. Spencer Dinwiddie back with the Mavs. Evan Mobley is a much richer man. Sam Hauser is going to make the Celtics pay the tax out the booty in a couple years, and we're going to talk about all that today here on Locked On NBA. I'm Tony East, one of the hosts over at Locked On Pacers, and joining me is Mr. David Ramil, who, of course, hosts Locked On Heat, who are the summer champs. David Ramil, congrats to the Miami Heat.
It's amazing, all those years trying to get to this point, and we're finally here at the mountaintop. The Celtics had their hurdles to overcome, but the Heat, they finally get it done in Las Vegas.
The real title. Thanks for making us your first listen today, and every day Locked On Heat should be your second listen. And, of course, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with the playoffs wound down. The sports stop sportsing like we want in the summer, but FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus every single day. There's something for everybody all summer long, and visit FanDuel.com to get started. Let's start with contracts, free agency, transactions, the fave of the summer. And the newest one, David Ramil, is the Mavs bringing back an old friend, Spencer Dinwiddie. They needed another reserve guard behind Luka and Kyrie. They were kind of scrounging for what that could be on this team. Maybe some Jaden Hardy can do it. Clay can kind of dribble, but not really create for other people. Who's it going to be? Well, how about an old friend in Spencer Dinwiddie? What do you think this does for the Mavs? Will he play? Does this change their fortunes much in the West?
I'm not sure why they went with Dinwiddie. I know one of the other names in particular was another former Maverick, Dennis Smith Jr. And maybe I'm just not much of a Dinwiddie guy, certainly not at this point. I know everybody can point to, he shot out, almost 39% with the Lakers last year from 3-point range. He was okay in his previous stint with Dallas, but I think the idea of Spencer Dinwiddie is always better than the reality of it. And I just, given what he does defensively, and this is, you've got Luka, you've got Kyrie, you've got a good enough supporting cast now. You've made some changes in the offseason. What got them to the finals was their defense. And if you're looking at it from that perspective, well, Dinwiddie doesn't play any. And yeah, maybe he might provide a little bit of a scoring punch, but let's be realistic. With Kyrie and Luka on the floor, you don't need Spencer Dinwiddie to put up, 10, 11 points on any given night, which is really what he's likely to do. He's going to have a much smaller role than any third guard might. And so I don't really see the need to acquire a guy like Dinwiddie. I probably would have preferred going after a guy like Dennis Smith Jr. myself, because again, I think he would have fed into that defensive identity that they embraced last year, and he would have played at a much higher level. Now, he's had his injury issues and everything else like that, but it's not like Dinwiddie has been a consistent or even a good player for a long stretch of his career too. So again, maybe I'm just down on Dinwiddie and the idea of it. If you can convince me otherwise, I'd be happy to hear it, but I just don't see how he's going to be much of a factor at all.
I'm not going to convince you too much. I share your general Dinwiddie opinion. I think the Mavs colored glasses response to that would be the only time he's been good in the last 4-ish years was with Dallas, right? Like that was his best stint in that stretch. It's interesting because they're pretty limited. They can only offer minimum. So of like actually good, if they're going to get a shot creator, like Devontae Graham, Tyus Jones, Markelle Fultz, would any of them have taken the minimum? Are any of them actually better than Spencer Dinwiddie? So if they were set on a minimum contract point guard who can create shots, this is maybe the best they could do, but I share your opinion of like, do you want to sniff around on a defensive guy like a Dennis Smith or a Saban Lee or just something else? But it might not matter. And I think they identified the right need of their roster in terms of positionally, like Exum maybe more off-bally and wingy, and Grimes is kind of the same way, and Hardy's unproven. But it may not matter too much, especially if he continues on his current career trajectory. Big contract number 2 of recent vintage. David Ramil, Evan Mobley. All the money and a chance to get even more all the money with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Two things from this one. One, would you have done this as the Cavs? And two, does this augur more moves in Cleveland?
I'm not sure about that last part. I think the first part seems like a no-brainer, and I know it sounds like a lot of money, but given the way that we saw the salary cap and the CBA kind of put restrictions that maybe a lot of teams hadn't anticipated for, the opportunity to lock in a young player with all-star potential that clearly improved last year and was played a big role for them in the postseason, and I think is going to continue to get better and might eventually, wind up being their starting five. And I guess that's the additional moves that you were kind of hinting at. I think it's really a no-brainer. I mean, I like Mobley's game. I think he's got a lot of potential, still unrealized. He's already shown a lot of flashes in just a couple seasons in the NBA. So to me, I think he's a really solid player. I don't see why you wouldn't do this. So the numbers seems like a lot for a player, again, who hasn't even been an all-star at this point in his career, but given his potential and everything else like that, I think it's a smart move.
I'm extremely high on Evan Mobley, and I think that the 2020 draftees, 2021 draftees is a little bit easier for teams to negotiate these rookie extensions because the cap's going to just be crazy, right? And I get that it starts the first year of the 10% jump, but with the TV deal in hand, and now maybe even changing a little bit with Turner jumping in, it's going to go up cap wise. Like you shouldn't be scared too much as a team. Like if he's not awesome, maybe he's a little overpaid, but he's going to be good, and the percentage of the cap's going to go down every year. Like you're fine with that, especially if the framework is there. The only thing that makes it tenuous is the wrong word, but just like what's the future of the Cavs is next year will be Jared Allen's last year, and they just extended Mobley. Mitchell just extended. Garland's on a max. Like that is an expensive team, so they do have a narrow-ish window. But the young guy with upside and a great pairing with Mitchell specifically, you figure out the other pieces as you go, I think. And so,
absolutely,
yes, a lot of Franz Wagner level sticker shock with this one, but I would have done it too as the Cavs.
Yeah. No, I think you've got your foundation. If you got your star in Mitchell, you've got a really good complementary player, and everybody else, to your point. Like, I mean, right now the roster is a pretty good roster to begin with, but if you have to make changes, if let's say Garland and that relationship becomes further or more untenable than it's already hinted at least from some reporting, and whether or not you start to move Allen, if he becomes, I don't know what exactly how they view him and his future with the team, but you've got another really good option in Mobley who can assume that role if you decide to trade away Jared Allen.
And they made the coaching change, so if things don't get significantly better, the next move is, as every team of all time has done, change the roster. It's always the natural cycle of team building. The last deal of recent maneuvering from teams, the Celtics are firing money out of the fire hose. Sam Hauser, 4 years, $45 million. Look, to the Celtics' credit, they identified an undrafted dude who can really shoot it and can kind of guard and contributed in the rotation for a finals team, and they kept him. That team's going to cost a ton of money. It's very funny how being good matters in reactions to these deals, right? Because that's a fair contract for Sam Hauser. The Celtics are the best team in the NBA. Everyone's like, great, sounds good. The Suns are also going to be really expensive. And every time they sign anybody, everyone's like, uh-oh, that's a really big tax bill. I think the Celtics are fine with it. And I like that they're fine with it because a lot of teams have been scared of it this summer.
It feels like a good vibes move more than anything else. It's not a knock on Hauser and the kind of shooter that he is or anything like that, but he's a damn good shooter, obviously damn good contributor, solid, improving defender, I'll say. But I also think no, really. But at the same time, I also think that it's about keeping the team together. You don't want to tear it down after winning a championship. Right. You don't want to be like that sees role players leave, when they want more. You've already got, Brown locked up with his big contract. You extend Tatum as well. And it's just a really good move, right? It looks good PR, etc. At the same time, it kind of feels like, given the tax that they're going to incur, not just from Hauser's contract, but all the other contracts that they've signed, and the fact that they're going through an ownership change, like that just feels like not the best move in terms of, you probably could have found somebody similar. It didn't take long to develop a player of Hauser's caliber. You probably could have found another shooter who could be a contributor, especially when your bread is buttered by having the star level players that you do on this roster. You didn't need to pay $45 million for a pretty decent role player.
I think their window is as long as the shortest contract of their stars, which was a very wordy way of saying they're so expensive, absurdly expensive, right? Like next year, Hauser, Tatum, White all kick in. Holiday and Porzingis are now kicking in, and Brown makes a ton of money. Like, it's going to be insane. And they're so good. Like, that's a team you pay for. Great. Like, they're the title favorites entering next year. But as soon as it gets close to the end of Porzingis' deal, they have to be like, oh boy, we're really going to pay this much for a team that's not going to be as good. That's, to me, when you'll see the Celtics have to really think about, how much money have we spent? How much are we going to keep spending? The repeater tax comes for everyone. Just ask the Clippers how their summer went in that way. Team USA, speaking of the Celtics, since like half their team's on that team, the rosy way of discussing them is they are 5-0 in their exhibition play. Under the hood, though, I don't really have some compliments. We got to talk about what the heck has been going on with them. Can they win this Olympics thing? Before we dive into that, though, we have to dive in and talk about eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for on eBay Motors. Plus, with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you'll get your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Back here on Locked On NBA, thanks for diving in and making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Cavs, Locked On Mavs, and Locked On Celtics for more on those moves that we just discussed with local experts who understand more about their team situations than we do. We don't have a Locked On Team USA, so welcome in. This is it for the next 9 minutes as the United States looks ahead to the Olympics. They're done with exhibition play. They beat Germany on Monday, David.
Really?
They won the game. LeBron is saving them. They are 2 LeBron masterclass fourth quarters away from 2 losses in a row in London. They played very well against Serbia. They had mostly good performances against Australia and Canada, although the fourth quarter against Australia was pretty rough. They've had enough down stretches that no one is feeling awesome despite their results. What have been your early impressions of this team as they head into group play later this week?
I think it's a couple of things. They've been missing Kevin Durant, and I think we can't overstate the fact that he certainly greases the wheels on what they can do offensively, and he'll certainly contribute defensively. And you have to respect that the 3-point shot just hasn't been as consistent a weapon for this team as it should be, given the star level on this roster. But with Durant, you figure, again, a lot of that offense will be a lot easier to get to. I think it's also been, at least from my perspective, a clunky fit getting Joel Embiid out there as a starter. You see the energy level with Bam Adebayo and Anthony Davis when they're on the floor, and their ability to switch everything and blocking shots and covering up on the defense and on the perimeter. And with Embiid, it's just, well, he can't move, and I think he's still limited by his injuries during the regular season. And I think he's also maybe not the best fit for FIBA level competition in terms of foul trouble. And he's not going to get the friendly whistle that he does get at the NBA level. So I think that's put a crimp on what he can produce as well. And so he had a really good game today, like against Germany, and Daniel Tice
was like his day. Yeah.
By far. A leading rebounder, good solid scoring game. He had a nice run there, I think in the third quarter in particular, where he would kind of help Miami extend Team USA extend their lead a little bit. Sorry. Just finished wrapping up an episode of Locked On Heat about the Las Vegas Summer League Championship.
We'll get there. We will get there.
Yeah, we will absolutely get there. But, Embiid, he just doesn't seem like the right fit for the roster. So, that's my concern. I think you'll probably have more to speak on this than I do, but Tyrese Halliburton not getting any playing time against Germany today. What did you make of that?
Yeah, they went to Derek White again. So the South Sudan first half, that bench group stunk, right? And that was really interesting because, the Serbia game and part of the Australia game, that second group, which at the time was Halliburton and the two bigs you mentioned earlier in Bam and AD, and Tatum was awesome. Like they were terrorizing people. And then that first half against South Sudan, they were awful. And they couldn't guard that team at all. Even in the second half, they couldn't guard that team. But that is why I thought they made the switch to Derek White for that half, but they continued with Derek White in this game. Here's what I think. Halliburton's an awesome passer, best passer on the team probably.
Yes.
What does that get you on a team where everybody can create their own shot pretty easily, right? How much value add is that compared to what guys are already creating? The easy answer for some people would, like Pacers people in my mentions all day, have been like, they're not creating that good shots. Like they're struggling to beat these teams. And that's actually true. So that would be the argument to play him again. Derek White's done fine. Like this isn't a knock on Derek White. He's a great player and he fits well with any lineup. But if it was as easy, like LeBron is whatever shot he wants, whenever he wants. Anthony Edwards has been like that too. Steph to some extent, but everybody else, it's not been that as smooth of sailing. And that's the argument for Halliburton. Like him and Bam had awesome offensive chemistry when they would play together. So maybe that's a change they could go to when KD comes back. I would bet Halliburton and White don't play once that happens. But yeah, it's been interesting because to me, what's stood out is you kind of nailed it with Embiid, but like they've had a lot of stretches of games where something looks great, right? Ant looks unstoppable. LeBron looks unstoppable. The Bam Davis front court pairing, you can't score as their opponent, right? Drew Holiday has been largely consistent, but every other thing has just been like in bursts and surges to me. It hasn't all clicked at the same time. And so there's a couple ways you could think about that. I would like the red, white, and blue colored glasses way would be, well, it's the same argument that happens every summer with this team, which is every other team has chemistry because it's the same rosters that play together for basically every other country besides Canada, and USA has a new team every year. I think that's true, but also like with this kind of team, it's really hard to come up with like the perfect 5-man combos, right? Like they have a lot of two-way talent, but guys who are used to being the number one alpha dog on their team all of a sudden have to like slotting into roles is not easy. That's why Drew's been so good because he's never had to do that, right? So some guys have gotten it, Bam right away, AD right away, Drew right away. Other guys have not. And so I think they'll get better at it, but it has been clunky, I think. And I think they're still the favorites. They've won all the games, but it has not looked like a team that should be considered strong favorites by any stretch.
No, I think they'll get challenged. I
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't predict whether or not they'll lose, but I don't think I'd be surprised even, if things go really poorly in one particular moment. Like again, if one of those bursts, whatever it might be, whether it's Steph shooting or somebody else stepping up, or maybe on the defensive end, you're not able to stop somebody, then all of a sudden that leads to another close game where they can't sum up the magic that they did today in order to be able to pull out the victory.
No.
You also
not they summoned. LeBron summoned.
That's fair. That's fair. He's phenomenal. I tweeted this out like,
Unbelievable.
early in the game. Like he was setting a tone with a couple of dunks, breaking away. Like it's more energy than anybody else on the team. Despite the fact that he's 39 years old and almost
turns
40
like, this year. Unbelievable.
Yeah. But you also look at the game, and I was watching it. It's just USA's offense, if you even want to call it that, is just a lot of self-shot creation and not a lot of ball movement. Whereas when you look at Germany, it's a lot of passing, a lot of cutting, a lot of off-ball movement, none of which exists from USA. And that's just, I don't know if that's on Steve Kerr. I don't know if it's just the mentality of these great superstar level players, but I wonder how much Halliburton might be able to help with that. Because obviously with his vision and passing, he'd probably make those opportunities a lot more readily available for some of these other players. And yet again, he wasn't on the floor. So you just like to see some tweaks to the offense. And I know they're probably going to be defined to a large degree by their defense and being able to stop other teams, especially with that size that we've talked about. And yet you look at them offensively and they're hard to watch. Sometimes those shots fall and sometimes they don't. You watch Tatum try to create and, he winds up spinning into a turnaround fadeaway. It's like, is it going to fall? Oh, it's not. Well, that's basically a wasted possession. And with these shorter games, you don't really, exactly. It's not good. I wonder if it's going to be KD from a couple of years ago or a couple of Olympics ago, is he going to be that kind of star level player as he's good. He struggled. Obviously, he still struggles. He's getting older too. So, is he going to be able to, bounce back from injury and somehow wind up finding the fountain of youth at the same time? That seems unlikely, and yet I'm kind of pinning my hopes for this team on him all the same. So I don't know. I don't know what they're going to be able to do to make changes. They're going to continue to play. They're going to practice. They'll get better. Maybe you'll see more chemistry develop as the tournament goes on. But yeah, it's going to be a lot tighter than a lot of people expected, despite the star names that are attached to this roster, including Embiid's. It just hasn't looked as fluid as it should.
Hey, we're a Carlik Jones floater away from them losing a game, and they were tied with Germany with 3.5 minutes to go. And LeBron's like, I'm underselling. Like, he was unbelievable to close this game. It was totally insane. The other thing that I will say that some of this is Germany gets them up, but I don't know what it finished. I don't have the box score in front of me, but I do remember reading a tweet during the fourth quarter that the free throw discrepancy at the time was 41-14 in attempts. Like, that is way too wide. And that kind of speaks to what we're talking about with the self-creation of these USA stars, and Steph gets them up and other guys can, but they're not, right? Like, that needs to be more of their offense. And I think if you can flow into more sets and, there's more just natural action to set up shooters, that would go along. They don't have a lot of awesome shooters on the team, but no one is an awful shooter on the team. Like, they got to get up more than whatever they ended up with, probably 16 by then, because it wasn't over yet. So that is another tweak I would make, but there's still they won these games. Like, they still beat, and most of their opponents were good teams, but they did not inspire any confidence, I don't think, in anybody that they're going to just run through this. They did lose a game in the last Olympics. It was a group stage game, but they're not immortal at all.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, yeah, they don't have the toughest group in the Olympic tournament, but they'll be facing some. They'll still be facing some tough opponents though. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. They'll medal. I just don't know that gold is guaranteed either.
You know who did leave no doubt and went undefeated and ran through the playoffs? The summer Miami Heat. They got it done. They beat the Grizz. Let's wrap up some Summer League. Talk about some standout performers to wrap up today's Locked On NBA. Before we get to any of that, let's talk about the great folks over at FanDuel. I love sports. If you're listening, you probably also love sports. Love sports so much. Don't want them to stop in the summertime, but the playoffs have wound down. The Panthers, NHL champs, the Celtics, NBA champs. There's fewer games. The WNBA is off until August 15th. It's just baseball. It's just the Olympics. The sports are not sportsing like we all want right now. But thankfully, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do, open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. This summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers, every single one, with a booster bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everybody every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with daily boosts and bonuses. That's on FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Back here on Locked On NBA, let's wrap this one up. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out Locked On Lakers to hear more about them talking about LeBron being awesome. I did not know Bronny James's dad was this good at basketball, David. He's incredible. Your Heat, summer champs. I don't know how much I want to dive into specifically the Summer League title game. Maybe a little bit of stuff. We should talk about what the Heat were able to do, go undefeated, and they have some NBA level dudes on their team. We can talk about some standout performers, including the Heat having, I believe, 2 first-team All-Summer League guys. I have to double-check the rosters. First of all, what made this Heat team so good in this summer setting? Because they do have some guys that are going to be worth watching when the actual NBA season starts in a few months.
Well, I think they had a legit 7-footer and their rookie that they drafted this year, Khalil Ware. I think having that advantage, like he was the first teamer as far as the Summer League tournament is concerned, and he had some pretty productive games, good rim protection overall, just an easy outlet for a guy to just toss the ball anywhere near him at the rim, and he's probably going to be able to finish. He made some evolution where I think he was playing a lot less with his back to the basket, which was not his strength. It's not his strength. It wasn't at the collegiate level. He's just a little bit too undersized. It's just not strong enough to finish with that kind of authority, or he's not polished offensively in terms of having a back to the basket game. But he just was such a tall presence there that you can generate a lot of easy offense that way. They also had Jaime Jaquez Jr. for 2 games. He wound up making, he was the second teamer, and he was phenomenal in those 2 games. He's one of those guys that you just look at and you go, you know what, he shouldn't have been there for a second. But he happened to be in Las Vegas already with a USA team select. And so he was already there. And he was like, you know what, why not play a little bit more? He played 2 games. Clearly he was good enough. And they were like, you know what, you could just go ahead, go home. We're fine with your performances. They were incredible, good enough again to be on the second team for the tournament. And yet, I think he really contributed while he was out there. Other than that, I think one of the bigger things, and we talked about this last week, from my perspective, Miami looks like they've kind of replenished their pipeline to a certain degree, getting some of these undrafted guys, or maybe even like a second round draft pick like Pelle Larsson. He was their second round pick out of Arizona this past year. He winds up hitting the game winner in the championship game. He started off well, got into foul trouble, and then finished the game really well. You got guys like him, Keshad Johnson, who was also from Arizona. He played well in a couple of games, and then unfortunately he wound up hurting his ankle. You get a lot of contributions like that. But for teams that are looking to kind of bolster the guys at the end of the bench, who, especially because of the salary cap and all the restrictions that it's going to place on building teams, you're going to need to add these kinds of guys. Two-way players, I think, are going to have much more value as eventual contributors than they have in the past. And so you want to be able to give them an opportunity to kind of test them and see whether or not they have at least NBA level skills or the kind of potential to be an NBA level rotation player. So I think it's fun enough to watch. But to your point, I'm not taking anything away from that. I think it's been going around social media a lot. Like, I can't even name the last few Summer League champions, and certainly hasn't translated into anything tangible during the regular season. But it's nice to see. Did anybody aside from the Heat kind of stand out to you in terms of what they were able to produce? Because I think G.G. Jackson from the Memphis side, he was phenomenal. Can make a strong case for Reed Shepherd too. I think he was really good. Anybody else that really kind of stood out?
Okay, hold on. One, I can't let you skip past Indiana Hoosier Khalil Ware that fast. He's in the perfect spot. I'm very excited for him as a Hoosier grad myself. And second of all, every time I watch Alondas Williams, he looks awesome. Can the Heat actually feature him somehow in some way? I don't know if they actually can, but he's an
unrestricted free agent, and so they actually renounced his rights, I think, and he's not on a two-way. So I don't know if his showing is strong enough. But if you're a team like Brooklyn, maybe, who's looking to add some young talent, I'd think he'd make a great fit.
So it's kind of boring, but a lot of the first team guys were really good. You already mentioned G.G. Jackson. Like, the fact that he went from 45th pick two-way to some maturity questions to oh, geez, this guy's awesome. Very quick rise. He looked great in this championship game. Once again, Jake LaRavia looked good tonight too. He had some whoa in the bag kind of stuff, which maybe that matters for Memphis. If I had to vote for Summer League MVP, my vote would have been Scottie Pippen Jr. He looked really good for Memphis throughout Summer League. Not as sensational in this title game, obviously, but took a ton of shots. But his passing was good. That he's actually going to have an NBA career. And then if I can bump down a bit. We haven't even hardly talked about Jalen Williams, who won MVP on second team. That's the dumbest thing ever. How is that even possible that he's on second team and won MVP? Jordan Miller had 1 billion points every time I watched the Clippers. But a real standout to me was Bub Carrington for the Wizards. They traded up. They got him from the Portland trade with Denny Avdia, the last lottery pick. Every time I watched Washington, he was getting by guys, making stuff happen with passes and finishing plays. He looked really good. They might have gotten a pretty good player there at the end of the lottery, of course, with all the caveats that it's Summer League, but I liked a lot of what I saw from him as well.
Yeah, Carrington's a nice call out there. Did they explain why Williams was a second teamer? I know he was interviewed during the broadcast, but I wasn't really listening at that point in time. Did he have any kind of insight to that? Was it just a positional thing?
Makes no sense. It shouldn't matter. If he won the MVP, that means he's the best player. It doesn't matter what position he is. He should have been on the first team. It makes no sense. No, he did not really address it. It's so dumb to me.
Yeah, it kind of puts the whole thing into question, really.
What's the point of it? The voters determined that you were the best player, but they also determined you were not one of the best 5 players. Do with that information what you will.
A little contradictory there, but it was fun. I think I think the Summer League did a lot to kind of change the perception of the draft. Obviously, there was a lot of noise about it. It was a really bad draft, but I think you're going to see
good players,
a lot of solid players kind of emerge from this draft down the road. And I think that's just the way it is. It's just the star level at the top, especially seems anticlimactic given the buzz last year. You and I were both there last year in Las Vegas, and
Yep.
Victor Wembanyama and everything that, there were people there that probably hadn't been to Vegas in a long time to cover the league and to cover the tournament. And they were there to see Wembanyama because it's Victor Wembanyama. There was so much hype about him emerging as a rookie. This year, there was no star. Obviously, the number one pick wasn't a consensus. Even this year's number one pick, not really a great performer in summer league, and that's fine. He's still a building block for Atlanta, and that's all he needs to be.
Right.
But at the same time, I think you could still kind of take away the performances from this year and say there's still going to be a good rookie class. It is a good rookie class, and it will continue to improve as time goes on. You're going to see a lot of contributors and NBA level rotation players, even if you don't see a superstar emerge, and certainly not emerge as quickly as Wembanyama did last year.
Yeah, your co-host was there and into him at a game that I was going to say the primetime events of this year's Summer League was actually the 55th pick, Bronny James. A lot of people wanted to watch the Lakers out there. Hey, his last two games were good. He did actually show some growth.
I feel bad for him. Because it's just so unfair at this point. I mean, we can talk about him, and it's not like, I don't think it's a saturation of coverage that, say, ESPN or other markets have been accused of. At the same time, it's just like, the way it was kind of forced onto the Lakers and everything else. It's just his career is already going to start off with so much pressure and just everything under a microscope, and it's just so needless. Like, let the kid just evolve like any other second round pick would, and he'll turn out to be fine. It's just all these. He can't win. He cannot win. If he has a good game, it's like, see, I told you he was great. And if he doesn't play well, which he won't because he's a rookie, then it's just, another opportunity to tear him apart and say, I told you so. And it's unfortunate to see any young player, especially one who his life was, he suffered a major cardiac issue not that long ago.
1 year ago. Yeah.
We should have a little bit more empathy for these young players and for all players in the NBA. They're not just gladiators out there that we can watch bludgeon each other to death. They're actual human beings, and we should take that into consideration whenever we watch these games.
Well, we got in that Scottie Pippen, his son played great. Bronny, LeBron's son played great. And also on a team was Jameer Nelson Jr. And for some reason, that one made me feel old, but Bronny didn't, even though LeBron, it's just because LeBron is still playing. Jameer Nelson's older than LeBron, so it's not that weird, but that one hit me like a truck. I was like, Junior, how? What is happening? I have no more Summer League thoughts unless you do. I love Summer League, not because the games are awesome, but just because, like, NBA players with no stakes is a fun environment. You get to see some fun games, some guys pop. The only thing that matters is if someone was bad. If someone was good, it doesn't mean they're going to be good. But if someone's bad, that is generally maybe not the best sign for their career. I have nothing else to add unless you do, David Ramil. We can get these people out of here.
Do you have any fun stories from behind the scenes while you were there? There's always something as you're kind of we're going around the city and you find NBA players in the most unexpected
You just run into
places.
people in the most random places. It's
I love
ridiculous. I know, I do too. And you pick your hotel on the strip. Like, you will find find someone. No, my only fun story is not NBA player related, so it's not for this podcast. But I'll tell you when we're done in a second. Thank you all for tuning in today. Hey, when you're done, go check out some of the other things Locked On has to offer, including the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories from the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows, including this one covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. David Ramil is on Locked On Heat. I'm on Locked On Pacers. Check us out. Thanks for listening today. See you tomorrow with John Krause and Jake Madison on Locked On NBA.